Okay, good evening. How are you? Fine. So, क्लास के बाद पूछूंगा. So all of you are studying general studies. So what time is your classes? 7:30. Jogging करते हो जाते हो? 7:30 to 10. 11:30. 3 hours. What are you studying? Right now, what are you studying? Ethics. How you define ethics? How you define ethics? Then I'm confused. What is moral? I'm looking for one definition. You are creating a challenge for me to understand the other one. Should public administration or should public servants know what is ethics? Everybody should know ethics. Right? Public servants should know public service ethics. Right? It's not about just ethics. So, politicians should know ethics in governance. Public servants should know public service ethics. Right? Citizens should know citizenship ethics, democratic ethics. Right? Ethics is what every context in which you are working, whatever you're doing, right? Every context has some defined do's and don'ts. That is why ethics is practical application. Practical application. Morality is the basis, the ideal basis, right, on which we develop these standards. So when I say religion, religion has its own moral values. That means the core basis of religion, which guides the functioning of religion. When this religion functions in society, right, it comes in relation with other entities, politics, society, economics, right? So how the religion and now politics will interact, how religion and economics will interact, how religion and administration will interact, right? For that also we need some framework, that is ethics, right? So ethics is generally the consequence of our moral actions. So when we evaluate those consequences in a particular framework, that is called ethics. So you have ethics starting from individual to institutional, right? From personal to global. And morality is the source of that. That's why I say morality is intrinsic, ethics is extrinsic, right? Morality is imperative. भाई सबको ऑनेस्ट होना चाहिए, moral statement. Fine, but कितना honest होना चाहिए, ethical statement. Right? Who should be honest to what extent? Fine, even mafias are honest, right? Gundas are also honest to their work, yes. But see, their honesty is conditioned. Everybody's honesty is conditioned. The way you are honest to your parents, right? Same way you are not honest to your friends. Right? Probably tomorrow you'll be more honest to your wife than anybody else. The conditioned है. But saying कि honesty is needed, it's a moral imperative. हर जगह honesty होनी चाहिए, चोरों में भी. तो ethics क्या करता है? See, all these are studies are, all their applied aspect. Right? Ethics has moved beyond being a theoretical science or theoretical study. Right? So second ARC, when you read all those books, you'll understand that today the scope of pragmatic ethics, right? Ethics in real life, real world. And that is why the concept of ethical relativism comes. कि ethics relative है, absolute नहीं. If you follow ethical absolutism, you can never do anything in your life, right? You cannot be a non-vegetarian. You cannot even eat such plants because plants also have nervous system. Then you cannot do this, then you cannot do that. So there are so many things. So when you study anything, try to build or try to use it in your practical world. Right? So as a student, you have a different ethical principle, right? Ethical premise. For me, there is a different ethical premise. For someone, it isn't. That is why Gandhi talks about 7 sins. Right? 7 sins are the guiding principle. कि businessman को कैसा होना चाहिए, fine, individual को कैसा चाहिए, fine, ठीक है. तुम क्या पढ़ रहे हो? Security, useless topic. Then polity. What is a state? हाँ, यहीं से पढ़ के बता रहे हो, वहां का बताओ. Okay, so you have understood why, for what purpose are we studying public interest? Why we are studying public interest? That is the function of public administration. Why public administration will exist? To do public interest. So in a very simple formula, we can say, by there is a state, then there is a government. The government creates the administration, or you say public administration. Public administration serves the citizens. What is the purpose of serving this public interest? Right? So how this public interest must be served? Fine? How the administration must try to fulfill the needs of the people. For this, we have developed certain principles. So if I'm doing it, how can I do it better? What is the basis on which I will evaluate my action, my decision, right? That is why we are developing these principles. So there were two kinds of principles we talked about, right? Intuitionism. Do you have a dedicated notebook for your class notes will have everything, right? Like I said, even after 5 years you give the exam, class notes will always be relevant. So intuitionism and perfectionism, they are two important principles. The third we talked about was utilitarianism. First you understand, then we'll write. It will be in your handout also, don't worry. Utilitarianism. Utilitarianism was given by two prominent people, right? Mills and Bentham. Have you heard the name? Right. Mills and Bentham. So utilitarianism is probably the most widely used principle to evaluate what we are doing. Is it justified or not? What decision we are making, is it ethical? Is it beneficial to the people or not? So like I said, we are making a dam and we are uprooting one community from there, right? So if we do a cost benefit analysis, if we are able to maximize our benefit and minimize our damage, right? Or if we can create maximum benefit to maximum people, thereby reducing the loss to only minimum, only few, then whatever decision we are making is correct. Whatever decision we are making can be called as public interest, right? So in daily lives also, we choose the same way, right? When you're doing anything, there will always be a bargain, right? You want to minimize the negative of that and maximize the positive of that, right? In any society, not everyone can ever be satisfied. You cannot satisfy everyone all the time. So you cannot make everyone or serve everyone's interest. But what will you do? You will try to serve the interest of as far as possible. The pizza example we said, right? So if we look at modern governments, majority of these governments use mostly this principle, right? This principle is more practical or pragmatic. Pragmatic is also practical. Why it becomes pragmatic? Now try to understand. Now we are applying this knowledge somewhere, let's say government system. So there are two people, A and B. Right. He has 4 cows, 4 sheep. He has 1 cow and 1 sheep. Can you call him little rich compared to? But in general sense also, he may be able to survive properly, right? He, on the other hand, is relatively poor and might feel certain discomfort also in surviving. Now, government says, right? Or let us say there is a party which comes and says, no, no, we will also make you rich, right? You should also have. There is no need for inequality in society, right? Okay, they have cars, you will also have cars. They have huge houses, you will also have huge houses. Let's say government decides and says, fine, why do you feel uncomfortable? Let us add cows. Now see, this person is no more relatively poor. In fact, he is not poor. Fine. Government has established equality between them. Right? And at the same time, this person more or less is able to survive as good as this person. On the face of it, we feel they have no conflict now. Right? Is it fine? Will they have any conflict now? At least not for the disparity which they were facing earlier. So let us say now government does this. Now this is a cattle. The cattle feeds on a grassland. Right? Nearby there is a farm which has a grassland. On that grassland, let's say it is 5 hectare. You understand hectare as a revenue collector. Fine. थोड़ा बहुत मैथ्स आना भी जरूरी है. Right? Collector is a revenue officer or not? Fine. Income tax. Right? Even police. Right. So, see. So कितने crime हुए? Maths तो आनी चाहिए थोड़ी बहुत ना. So let's say 5 hectare का land है, grassland. Now, earlier, they both were residing nearby and their cattle were feeding on this grassland. What was the rate of consumption? She said. Huh? Rate of consumption क्या था grass का? 4 plus 4, 1, 1. 8 plus 2, 10. 5 by 10. 10 cattle eating the grassland. Right? Now they have added 6 more. 5 by 60. It is just for, don't write this in the answers. It is just for your understanding. But it's a very important principle of distributing resources in the society. So when I say 5 by 16 now, the depletion rate is much more faster. Now, fine. Let us say depletion rate almost doubles. At least becomes 1.5 times. Okay. So now the grassland will be depleted faster. Then a day will come when the grassland is no more there. Fine. Both these people, their cattle would die because there is no grassland. Rate of replenishment is not that fast. Even renewable energy takes time. Understand this? Fine. That is why renewable technologies are also slow to take off. They are costly also initially. Fine. So now this cannot be replenished so easily. They might look for somewhere else. Fine. They might shift their base somewhere else. Again, they will face certain problems. See? Now, when the government has made them equal, right, then also it is not, or it is possible that they may become poor over a period of time. Why? Because their rate of consumption of resources will increase. So imagine this way, there are poor and rich. Now government makes everyone rich and everybody starts following a consumption pattern. More environmental damage, more cars on the road, more petrol consumption, right? And so what will happen? The resources will be used at twice the speed. So eventually what will happen? Everybody will face the same problem. So जो global warming 100 years में आने वाला था वो 50 years में ही आ जाए. You understand? You will fast track every damage that is being done. That does not mean we should keep people poor, right? But it obviously means that everybody cannot be made equal in the society. There will always be relative deprivation, relative poverty, not absolute poverty, relative poverty. That is a deliberate policy which every government follows. This is called distribution. But if I say some intelligent people like you become bureaucrat, right? Not the ratta maar wala, but intelligent people like you, fine, who are studying PubAd, right? They know what ethics is. So they become bureaucrats and they tell the minister ki bhai, aisa mat karo. What do? Redistribute it. 3, 3. Take 2 from him, right? 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. Now see, now he has 2 cows, 2 sheep. He has 3 cows, 3 sheep, right? Now relative poverty also reduces, and at the same time he may be able to survive in a better manner. Now government can support from outside. See? This is a better strategy, taking from him little bit and giving it to him, right? Or giving him same as him. What is a better strategy? That is called redistribution. Understand? This is referred to as redistribution. So when government makes policy, what is it? It tries to redistribute the resource. When government is trying to promote development, it is trying to redistribute the resource, not necessarily distribute the resource. So see what utilitarianism says, maximum benefit. It is not a correct strategy. This was the maximum benefit. Are you getting? So utilitarianism becomes the most practical application, but it suffers from the problem that if everybody is made equal, even if maximum number is made equal, right? Not everyone, but maximum number. Well, then also the government or society will suffer over a period of time. But yes, we should try to maximize. But what is the interest of everyone? Different from each other. Obviously, people living in remote areas do not require the similar infrastructure as we do. So you cannot say they will burden the environment in the same manner we are doing. Are you getting? So for us, maximum interest is different. For them, maximum interest is different. So utilitarianism tries to establish maximum. This maximum does not mean same for everyone. Try to understand. This maximum means within a particular community, within a particular territory, maximize it. So urban, maximize. Rural, maximize. Urban and rural, they are not same. So this is a very important principle. Throughout your life, you have to do this. When you talk about distribution of pension benefits to farmers. So you will classify rich farmer, right? Medium farmer, poor farmer, peasant, daily laborer. Unless you classify, you cannot maximize their benefit. You simply cannot say, give this thing to everyone. Impossible. Right? Fertilizer subsidy, kisko dena hai, right? Corporate tax waivers, kisko dena hai? And so, see. So these principles, they are very important in developing or the various policies which government makes for development, welfare, justice, like. So public administration as an organization, as a system, plays the most crucial role in distributing these benefits. And that is why a student of PubAd, or for that matter, public administration as an area of study, tries to understand this. Right? This you will keep applying later on. कोई डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन नहीं आएगा आएगा भी तो philosophy of public interest, yes, it may come, but even if it doesn't come, you'll keep applying it later on. Development administration, Indian administration, rural development, rural governance, urban governance, failure of policies in urban India, right, or whatever. So you can keep applying these principles to understand, or even in your general studies, to understand why this policy has failed, why this policy has been successful. See? Farm laws. Redistribution was important, not distribution. Right? Land reform in India. Redistribution was important. So many of the things we have taken, many of the development initiatives we have taken, that has or that could have been improved if we had followed this principle. So bureaucrats knew, but politicians don't know. That is the problem, right? So utilitarianism, right, will do good, but because utilitarianism focuses on maximum, right, that may not result the correct, or sorry, that may not lead to the best results.
Sir, the resources of one person which is at stake will not protest against it.
That is why government will do it.
Sir,
we cannot. See, when you're not understanding the point here. See, his survival, his dignity is not affected. That is called surplus resource. अब ये कैसे होगा? ठीक है? चलो let's say वो भी बता देता हूँ. ठीक है? Okay, this is a principle. Now, when you are giving 30% tax, government is taking from you. It is. Do you protest? Why not? It is your resource. Right? Who is that? Ashleel Grover? Yeah. Ashneel. Right? So he is criticizing government everywhere. Correct. 50%, 48% tax, right? So when the moment you earn and government says 18% mera hai, GST, right? 10% tax deduction at source, wo bhi mera hai. Do you protest? So the meaning of redistribution is this, not directly taking your asset, right? Understand? But taking the surplus income, the surplus benefit that you have. So government may impose a cess on his earning, right, or a surcharge on a particular product, and say now this will be diverted to this person. This is what government is doing. Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, subsidies on gas cylinder. They are not subsidizing you, but they are subsidizing certain section of people. So free and compulsory education in the government schools, right to education, सर्व शिक्षा अभियान, मिड डे मील स्कीम, बच्चों से पैसा थोड़ा ना लिया जाता है, पैसा कौन देता है? आप देते हैं. See, that is the meaning of redistribution. Right? So let us say, so utilitarianism is a good philosophy, very popular, right? But it focuses on equality, and that may be detrimental to society over a long term. But it is easy, right? And it ensures that people do not get into conflict, like they said. So more or less people get satisfied. Also, because we are living in a democracy, democracy works on the principle of majority. So if majority is satisfied, more or less everyone is satisfied. So government feels that okay, 70% of the people, more or less their interest is served, their interest is maximized. So whatever we have done is ethical also, and it is acceptable by the people. So 30% or 20%, 10% who are neglected, they generally don't question these things. Even if they question, the government can easily pacify these people. So this principle was developed, it became very popular. Most of the countries use it, right? Even democracy in general is utilitarian. Why? Because in democracy, only majority contributes and democracy runs. Democracy does not require the participation of everyone. Right? The kind of polity who's studying. So what is the electoral mechanism we follow? First past the post system, right? First past the post system. So if you are getting even 30% of the votes and it is more than the others, you will be elected. So democracy itself as a system is utilitarian. It ensures that maximum participation can be ensured, not necessarily participation of everyone. And that maximum is not defined actually, right? But see, so if we have resources, we can redistribute and we can overcome the relative disparity which is in society. Fine. But if we do not have enough resources, so like I said, if we have just one pizza, now there are 4 friends, now 2 more add to that. 2 more people get added to that gathering. Now what will happen? 1/6, 1/6, 1/6. See? Now in the urge of distributing maximum, when we do this maximum, but our resources are less and people are more, fine, our distribution is very minimum. That is not maximum benefit. That technically becomes a minimum benefit. Nobody can survive on that distribution. So that is why you say if country cannot create resources, then if the population is increasing, then if we distribute this resource, right, nobody will be satisfied. So in all the countries where resources are less or the speed of growth is slow, right, in those countries you will always find that there is huge disparity because resources are less, right? So there will be strong, powerful people who are running after those resources and they will try to capture it. So in every society, right, where you will find this huge disparity, it will be mainly because either they have less resource or there is huge corruption, administrative corruption, which is not allowing the distribution of this resource. Like Rajiv Gandhi said, ki bhai, out of every 1 rupee that we send from the top, right, only 85 paise, only 15 naya paise reaches the bottom. That is 85% of the resource is lost in between. Right? Now that was a very old saying. Vivek Debroy. Have you heard his name? Vivek Debroy, associated with Niti Aayog Planning Commission. Right? It's quite popular economist. So Vivek Debroy has written a book, The DNA and RNA of Corruption in India. In that book, he writes with data that in India or in this entire subcontinent, right, the business of corruption is to the tune of 20 lakh crore. That is why he uses the word business of corruption. The money which the governments lose, corporates lose to corruption annually is 20 lakh crore. So you can imagine, right? Imagine how the money would be flowing from political system to bureaucracy to corporates to mafias to brokers to whatever. But this money is not going to people. So see, if you have resources less, you cannot distribute properly. If you have resources also, but you have a lot of corruption, then also you cannot redistribute, right? That is why it is important for us to understand these principles so that we can know why something is happening, why it is not happening, right? So utilitarianism is good, but we have a problem with this, that it does not satisfy the needs of everyone. Some people are always left out in this principle, right? So there comes another person. He's very popular. He comes with his idea, right? John Rawls. His name you will study in ethics also, right? So John Rawls comes with the, what is the concept? Anybody? Correct. Theory of justice. So John Rawls comes with theory of justice. Now his idea is little unique. He says, because utilitarianism fails to bring everyone into the benefit, so we should follow a different strategy altogether. So he brings the concept of justice. What is justice? No idea. जस्टिस चाहिए नहीं चाहिए किससे किससे जस्टिस चाहिए माँ बाप से समाज से यूपीएससी से यू शुड नॉट एक्सपेक्ट दैट फ्रॉम यूपीएससी correct but what is that just in Indian constitution we have heard this term justice right preamble so let's say in Indian context you use the term no justice पॉलिटी पढ़ने वाला स्टूडेंट सभी पढ़ेंगे ऑब्वियसली सो यू टेल मी वेयर डू यू सी दिस इन प्रीएम्बल राइट सोशल पॉलिटिकल Ambedkar for him this justice world was very what you can say important okay more practically he had experienced this lack of justice in his life as he visualized it. So for him, this term was very dear to him. He said Article 17 should be a fundamental right. Right? What is Article 17? Abolition of untouchability. Right? So untouchability was something which he had himself experienced. Right? From there, he establishes the idea of social justice. So he says, if there is no social justice, we cannot expect these two to happen. So he says, on the base of the justice or Indian democracy lies the social justice. Others can only be achieved when this base is completed. So unless this base is fulfilled, unless we have social justice, we cannot expect economic or political justice. So he uses the term social democracy, political democracy, economic democracy. Right? So India में भी justice है. We have various provisions in the constitution which talk about this justice. And anything you know? Yesterday you were talking about India, that is Bharat. Huh? Hindi में Bharat, that is India. Now Pradhan Mantri is confused. Why? Because in his entire political science he did not study this kind of confusing knowledge. इंडिया भी भारत है, भारत भी इंडिया, अब क्या है? आर्यवर्त रख देते हैं, राइट? जम्बूदीप, Jambudip is also named. Aryavart is also named. Hindustan. Okay. Tibetans use a typical name for us. Right? You know that? Dalai Lama. Fagyul. Okay. So Tibetans are using a typical name for India. Fagyul. The land of the wise men. Right? तो ऐसे तो बहुत सारे नाम हैं हमारे लिए पूरी दुनिया में. And obviously India has one, I don't know, very famous teacher, but he has given some statement. India is the Western, is the name given by Britishers, which is highly illogical. Right? India comes from the word indica, Greek, Megasthenes. Okay, that is why something east of Indus, right? Hindu or Hindu, Sindhu, say Hindu ban gaya wo, right? So batao kahan, where in the constitution do we have this justice visible? Preamble? Fundamental rights, correct?
And economic and political we can see in UPSC.
First, we have to define what is justice. Right? Justice can only be established when every institution of the society, institution, you understand? Every organized system, government, politics, society, right? Economics, every institution which is legally, right? Through law, statute, constitution, whatever has established it. Every institution of the society, right, works in the most fair, transparent, non-controversial manner. So when people feel that they are being treated fairly and they are actually also treated fairly, then it is justice. So justice is not that easy. The means by which you serve people should also be just. The basis on which you serve people should also be just. The way you serve people should also be just. And ultimately, people should also feel that is just. So justice एक absolute term है, relative नहीं है. He will have more justice, I will have less. No. Everybody in the society must be treated fairly. And this must be reflected in every institution of the society. So we do not say justice is solution, right? Justice is compensation. That is not justice. So judiciary, executive, legislature, administration, laws, regulation, everything, if it is created in the most fair manner, right, implements in the most transparent manner, then it will be justice. So see, absence of disparity, absence of biasness, right, absence of any subjective evaluation in a society provides justice. So where everybody is treated not equally, but equitably. You understand? So justice takes place when we are not treated equally, but we are treated equitably. You need more, you get more. You need less, you get less. Right? But that is not disparity. That is treating you fairly with respect to others. So everybody as per their requirement, everybody as per their need, everybody as per their circumstance, when they are treated in a fair manner. That is justice. So equitable distribution is more important than equal distribution. You are not imposing this tax on that rickshawala, right? But you should definitely impose the tax on the momo wala. He is earning a lot of money without any tax, right? Don't you know? But they are earning lakhs of rupees. They are not paying taxes. That is not correct. So government can increase the tax base by bringing them. So when they are doing digital payments, then probably the government can track them, right? So if you say that rickshawala is not paying tax, but I am paying the tax, and on the road for which I am paying the tax, my car has no space, but his rickshaw has space. Will it be justice? It will be. Why? Because he has a rickshaw, I have a car.
He's using the same resources of the government.
But he's not capable, no. Rickshaw is his livelihood. Car is my leisure. Car is my luxury. Fine. He cannot survive without rickshaw, right? I can survive without car. So justice तो यही होगा ना भाई उसकी साइकिल या उसका रिक्शा is almost equivalent to my car. Logical. So you cannot say that these are street vendors have occupied the pavement. Fine, yes, you cannot walk maybe that easily or comfortably on the pavement because of them. But that is their bread and butter, that is their livelihood. You cannot compare your ease of walking with their livelihood. So even government tries to sideline your problems.
Sir, if they are earning a good amount of income,
See, that is our assumption, no?
we don't know their actual.
That is fine. But still, see, people are involved, they are doing manual labor, physical work, and all that. So somewhere if we categorize them into a workforce, right, they are not the skilled workforce. They are not part of the formal workforce. So even if we take that criteria, okay, fine, we are paying taxes, we have developed this infrastructure, why are they residing behind or below the metro? You see metro bridges, metro stations, most of them have occupied those spaces. Except when G20 was happening. Right? So Delhi was almost like Shenzhen. So see, they also have right to access those. That is justice. So justice says equity is important, right? But like you said, correct. We should not allow people to have access to resources in this manner. There should be some justifiable criteria. There should be some mechanism. For example, when I say positive discrimination. So see, we cannot treat everyone equally, and we know if we do that, society is going to be collapse someday. So what do? We create a different criteria. We say there are people who need more support, and there are people who don't need that support. See? So for us now, justice would be to compensate for the historical damages done to them by providing positive discrimination. So one section doesn't get that positive discrimination, other gets the positive discrimination. Now we try to balance these two. That is called justice. So equity will say that yes, people who need more protection of the government should get it. People who need subsidies should get it. People who need loan waivers should get it. People who need compensation should get it. You don't need, you will not get it. So see, it is not disparity. It is discrimination, but positive, in favor of those who need it. So vulnerables are protected more, and obviously normal people are allowed to contribute to the growth of the society. But can this continue forever? No, it's not that easy. Right? You have to maintain the balance of the society. You have to bring people out of poverty. You cannot just keep giving them benefits. Okay, that is why concept of justice also gets debated after a point of time. So do we need people who are dependent on the government and government should keep giving them resource, or do we need to make people more capable? That is the debate, no? Revdi culture. Right? But yes, obviously you cannot make them capable instantly. Inflation is also increasing. If food inflation is high, what is inflation? You know that. Yes, anybody can volunteer.
Average increase in
Increase in the price level of commodities. Increase in the general price level of commodities.
Correct. So when there is food inflation, what will be the impact? Food inflation will directly first impact the poor. Fine. The people who directly consume or spend majority of their income on consumption, they will be directly impacted by this. Fine. So the moment their food consumption or their expenditure on consumption increases, the surplus income with them reduces. Savings get eroded, right? For the same, obviously, because they cannot reduce their hunger, they cannot reduce the quantity of consumption instantly. So they are consuming the same food without adding any quality to their lives for a higher amount now. So if they were needing 1,000 rupees to survive, they would need probably 2,000 rupees to survive now. See? So imagine this way that there is no quality being added, nothing extra they are getting. They are getting the same survival, okay, with more money now. So actually they don't have new avenue of earning money. क्योंकि वही काम करने के लिए अब ज्यादा एनर्जी ज्यादा खाना खाना पड़ता है. Imagine this way. महंगा खाना. Costly food they are eating with the same calorific value. So earlier they were eating 2 samosas. Today also they are eating 2 samosas, but now the price is doubled. So the amount of energy they get is same. No nourishment. Can they do anything extraordinary? They can't do anything extraordinary. That is why it is very logical. If you correlate things, it is so logical to qualify UPSC. That is what they expect from you. A practical mind. So see, the moment inflation will increase, food inflation will be targeted, right? Then it will target a particular population and they will slowly go down again. They will fall in the poverty pit slowly and slowly. तो जैसे वो ऊपर उठे थे फिर वो नीचे से. So it is not that easy for government to maintain this, right? Also, people who can pay taxes, they may not pay tax. People may try to evade taxes. Black money enters into the system, right? Disparity increases further. So there are a lot of challenges which government will have to face, even if government starts this equitable distribution. Why? The moment government imposes taxes, people will start evading taxes. Like you said, right? The similar feeling is with so many people who say, we are giving a lot of tax, we are not getting the benefit. Why should we give a lot of tax when we don't have benefit? तो बहुत लोग ऐसा बोलते हैं. Every businessman thinks that way, that he's earning crores, but he's taking back only lakhs. Right? So definitely, even government's approach is like that. So see, this idea of justice or concept of justice was highlighted by John Rawls. John Rawls says, see, this strategy of utilitarianism may not be practical in long run. Right? It may make one section of the society unhappy. It may create a tendency of conflict in the society. Right? For example, we say minority-majority debate. Right? Or we talk about a certain minority who have not been able to get the benefits of the society. 2006, there was a Sachar committee report. Right? Have you heard of this report? Right? Manmohan Singh's tenure, and even before that, from Indira Gandhi's tenure. Right? Prime Minister's 14-point program. Have you heard of this? Changing to 20-point program. So right from the Indira Gandhi's tenure, right, they had a specific 14-point program or 15-point program they used to call for minorities, later on converted to 20-point program. So to implement it, they had constituted a committee called Sachar Committee. Sachar Committee was to understand or identify. Right, he was Chief Justice of Delhi High Court. So Sachar Committee report on inclusion of minorities in public services. That was the focus of the report. that how or what percentage of minorities have been included in public services. Because in India, public service is considered to be the easiest way to avoid poverty or the impacts of poverty, right? If you have to change your status in a very small span of time, you get into public services. Okay, that is why the biggest problem challenge with the government, that if the number of government services are reduced, there will be huge unrest in the society, because it is considered to be one of the best means to increase your status in the society. And I'm not just saying this, it is the report submitted by many committees. Right? Second ARC has also highlighted this. So generally people believe that public services are a good means to escape poverty, to change their status in the society. Right? So let's say this was the report. It was highlighting this, right? But this report highlighted that there is a very minimum participation of the minority, especially Muslim community, in the higher civil services in India. Literacy rate is much more less compared to the rest of the mainstream. So they cited various reasons for this. Obviously, government constituted this program in order to overcome the problems which are there. Right? Nai Manzil scheme. Have you heard of that? Nai Roshni. There is some schemes है भाई बहुत. Maulana Azad Foundation Scholarship Foundation Program. And likewise, various schemes are there for them. They were obviously implemented. Okay. Bunkar scheme. There are बहुत सारे schemes. So see, government tries to overcome this gap which exists. But it is possible that everybody may not be happy. Certain people may be exploited, so he brings this idea. Okay, so he says justice is what? Justice is fairness. What is fairness? Every aspect of society must have transparency. There should be no biasness, unbiased, transparent, right? And likewise, so he says that we should, or government, society, sorry, state or government should create the benefits and opportunities in such a manner that they are available to everyone. And how they are available to everyone? Equitably, not equally. समझ में आया नहीं आया पहले ही बताओ. Fine, because आएगा जाएगा right? फिर धीरे धीरे आने लगेगा. Right? फिर देर से थोड़ा जाएगा. This is a process, it happens, right? Slowly. Obviously, you are preparing for a tough exam, right? Not an impossible, but tough exam. So,
Is this theory justify that how will you distinguish who needs those resources? And how will you identify?
well, obviously, it tells how you can do it.
It tells equitable, but who needs the most?
See, obviously, when they say vulnerable sections, people who do not possess the resource, now that is actually the task of the government. He is only telling us the principle. So those who are at relative disadvantage, right? So every society has its own set of disadvantaged people, right? So that we can identify, but how we are going to serve them, why we need to serve them, that all he is telling. So John Rawls became a very popular person. Obviously, he was coming from Western mindset, right? But still, he talks about justice, right, as the basis. Now he says how this will be done. So he says, see, imagine that we distribute the resources, opportunities, public services, employment in the society. But let us distribute it in such a manner that those who need more should get patronage from the government, should get protection from the government. So when you think of America, right, the American blacks, Hispanics, Red Indians, and many other communities, which were called as aboriginal or native communities. They were residing there even before Britishers entered. So they were the communities, right? Because later on, when Britishers captured America, or when the Europeans captured America, and then over a period of time, they developed various systems. So what they did, they distributed. They had a lot of white or European settlers there. They distributed most of the benefits to these European settlers. So these Native Americans were discarded from this. Right? Plus, America became a destination of people from several countries. So civil rights or civil war was happening in US for the equality of opportunity between blacks and whites, or you can say whites and others. So in 1933, right, US office president or US office administrative system was overhauled on the recommendation of a committee, Brownlow Committee. Then in 45, Hoover Committee, 55, Hoover Committee second, and likewise. So since 1890s onwards, they started modifying, bringing changes, so that in order to include the Afro-Americans, Hispanics, blacks into the mainstream. But they were not able to do it. Why they were not able to do it? Because in every institution, the participation of these two was unjust, unfair. So imagine in every system, males dominated. So how they can approve a women-centric law or gender equality law? They will never approve it. So every system was male dominated. Judiciary was, white dominated. Administration was white dominated, and likewise. So they could not bring these reforms easily. So when 1930s changes were introduced, right, an Equality Opportunity Commission was created, legal system. Through that, now inclusion of, even then also it did not happen, because Martin Luther King Jr., you heard of his name? Very, right? Civil rights in America. So he became the leader of the civil rights, not riots. Riots happened, which led to the rights. Right? So he became the leader of the civil rights movement. So in every society there was disparity. When they were writing this theory, right, they were experiencing disparity in European and American society. Obviously, they were not talking about India. But you see, every society has this disparity. So he says that opportunities, resources, public offices, government employment, everything must be distributed or redistributed in such a manner that people who need protection should get protection. So he says, how we are going to enforce this justice? First point, he says, recognize those who need support. How do we recognize? It is the duty of the government. So mostly economically deprived, culturally deprived, right? People who are sidelined in the society, they should be given this opportunity. Second, he says, public offices. Government employment should be so designed that it should accommodate these people into the system, but not without merit. That is why he uses the concept of positive discrimination. Redistribute the resources, right, in such a manner that they are able to get into the system, but not without merit. That is positive discrimination. So merit will be a criteria, right? But its benchmark can be modified. So he brings the idea positive discrimination in public offices, right? Distribution of resources as per the need, right? So he says we should redistribute the resource in the society. We should provide services, okay, benefits to those people who need more. But how can we do it effectively? So he uses a logic. He says, let us use the economic principle of Pareto optimality. Have you heard this term? Right? Economic principles. Somebody is studying economics? No, sir. Because before you tell me what you're studying, you should be very cautious.
Very often this is best choice for that best given choice.
पहले यहाँ तक समझ में आया, then we'll talk about it. Are you able to understand this? Resource will be distributed. How? So that people who are vulnerable get the benefit. How they will get the benefit? They should be protected by the government. Positive discrimination by the government, like we have reservations. Same. Then, right, he says distribute the resources in such a manner that they are Pareto optimal. Now he uses an economic principle, right? That is why he is a dominant Western scholar. So let us say this is, let's say, environment conservation. Industrialization. Now see, if I industrialize, right, I damage the environment. More industrialization means less conservation, right? Is it correct? So I can make a diagram, right? And it's not a, it's an economic principle, right? But it is used in Nicholas Henry's book. So don't go out and say कि sir maths पढ़ा रहे थे PowerPoint में, हैं? तो निकोलस हेनरी की बुक में दिया हुआ ये यही एग्जांपल, राइट? So let us say they have chosen different variables. So if I say, okay, we are providing, for example, reservations, and we are reducing the merit, right? So if I say reservations increase, the criteria of merit will go down, right? So there are so many things which are interrelated in an opposite manner or inverse ratio. The more you study, the more are your chances to qualify, no doubt, right? But the more you study qualitatively, the faster are your chances of qualifying. You understanding what I'm saying? The more you study, there are chances of you qualifying. But the qualitative you study, the faster are the chances of qualifying. That is the only difference, right? So, क्योंकि पढ़ने वाला भी एक टाइम के बाद क्वालिटेटिव हो जाता है. Once they qualify prelims, they don't qualify mains, right? Then second time they qualify prelims, again they don't qualify mains. Third time they qualify prelims, go to the interview, come back. Now they become qualitative. But see, they will have to work hard for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. Then they will realize कि मोहित भट्टाचार्य पढ़ना था, नहीं पढ़ना था, अच्छा ठीक है पढ़ना. Right? See? So obviously exam is like that. So let's say you, right, will do or promote industrialization. Somewhere you will restrict the conservation of environment, right? Damage the environment. You promote merit, right? Or you stick to a particular idea of merit, automatically your benefit of reservation will go down. Fine. Reduce subsidies, right? What will happen? Surplus income available, right? Survival income available to people will go down. तो अगर आपने सब्सिडी कम बढ़ा दिया तो गवर्नमेंट एक्सपेंडिचर बढ़ जाएगा, right? And like we see, so everything that you do, that somewhere comes in a pair. Pair का मतलब क्या है? It comes with some consequence, externality, that is called, right? In public policy studies, it is called externalities. Spill over. So some are intended, some are unintended, right? So for example, you are preparing for UPSC and you also qualify SSC. Intended or unintended? Fine. Obviously, you will not leave that UPSC and go for SSC, right? Though, right? Though there are people who have chosen PCS over IS, not proper IS, but UPSC, right? They have chosen State Public Service Commission. So automatically, let's say there are certain spillover effects. So if you are able to now balance this, for example, so what Rawls is saying, that imagine that you are taking taxes from some, right? And you are distributing these taxes to others. So people, if you are increasing the subsidies, benefits to the people, you will have to increase the tax to someone, right? So क्या होगा? जैसे ही आप टैक्स बढ़ाएंगे, इंक्रीज करेंगे, टैक्स बेस कम होने लगेगा. Start narrowing down, right? So he says, he imagine this way that, okay, fine, we are giving benefit to the poor. At the same time, we are not hurting the rich. Can we do that? If you benefit the poor more, you start hurting the rich more. See? So he says, let's imagine this way that there is some point here. He says, imagine there is a point. At this point, right, the increase in this does not adversely affect this. So he says we can come to some equilibrium point where industrialization will not create excess burden on the environment, right? Where positive discrimination will not impact the merit adversely. I'm understanding this logic? So how we can follow things rationally so that one does not affect the other negatively. That is what is called a Pareto optimal point. If we go below this, it is called Pareto suboptimal point. Then we'll damage either of them, right? Or we'll miss this equilibrium. It is very difficult to achieve it. Every government wants to achieve it. We have to manage our resources. So we cannot discard anti-poverty campaigns also, and we cannot discard the moon mission also, right? Some people may say, why to spend so much of money on that when you already have a lot of people dying of hunger? Fine. That is what government has to balance. How it can balance because of this? The expenditure on defense, science and technology, research and development, less money for subsidy, this. Manage karna padega. So the balancing or equilibrium point, right, where we can arrive, right, where one does not affect other adversely, that is called Pareto optimality. So Rawls says it is possible that everyone cannot be benefited equally. Not everyone can have maximum benefit, but it is possible that some can have more, some can have less. Can we balance it? Those who are having less benefit, right, they should not feel hurt while giving benefit to some people who are getting more benefit. Now see, policy of reservation in India. Supreme Court has talked about the reservation policy in Indira Sahni case, right? Mandal 1, Mandal 2 case. So Mandal Commission case, which was for OBC reservation, right? See, government, so Supreme Court said that and try to make sure that the overall reservation does not exceed 50%. So why is that? Because obviously Supreme Court came to the idea that the moment it exceeds 50%, it will be injustice or unjust to others. The moment tax increases beyond a point, it will be unjust to those who are working hard and earning money. That is the meaning of Pareto optimality. So benefit to one should not create problem for others. So he uses, or this is what the definition of Pareto optimality is, where, let us say, right, if you are promoting the interest of one group, right, it should not be at the cost of the damage to the other group. See.
Sir, waiving of farm loans is
Waiving.
Sir, does it not disincentivize the people who pay the loan?
Correct, definitely.
If they take the loan, they will not pay it.
See, you have to first think this way that until unless those people missed many deadlines, right? Until unless those people whose farm loans were waived, they were in such a dire situation, right? Government would not have gone for farm waivers or loan waivers. If government is going for loan waivers, right, then there would be certain circumstances, there are already certain circumstances, right, under which that was the only possible solution. So you're right. It may disincentivize those people who are paying back loan, but those who are paying back loan, they might be capable of paying it back.
Sir, in every election, place, that Shivraj Singh Chauhan offers a solution for the farmers to get the waiver of the loan. Every election last campaign.
वो तो populist measure है ना. See, you cannot equate election manifesto or election time decisions with a normal policy. Right?
Farmers are missing the deadlines on purpose.
So that they are waiting for elections. So that's why I said it is more of populist measure, no? So the populist measure, that is how the state politics will run, and that is why they might be incurring a lot of losses. So it is quite obvious that nobody can stop that. Democracy है, utilitarian है, right? Maximum benefit to maximum number, ये maximum कौन है? Voters. So you can.
So for redistribution of resources, the concept of wheel of ignorance will be used.
Obviously we'll talk about that. So how you will create this rationality, right, or equilibrium point, then that concept will be used. So let's say any society in the world, any system in the world, right, cannot be that fair. So you're trying to find out that point where this distribution seems to be just, right? But any system in the world, will it be that fair? No, right? Every system is governed by human beings. Human beings will come with subjectivity. So Rawls says, see, imagine this way, that how this society or how these systems can be created in a fair manner. How can absolute fairness be achieved? So he says, let us imagine that we go back to original position. What is original position? Some point in time where we all started as a society, right? Let's imagine we are starting, or we are at the starting point. At that starting point, let us imagine there is a veil of ignorance. Veil of ignorance means unbiased view. I am not influenced by caste, creed, religion. I don't know what gender is. I don't know what caste is. I don't know what culture is. I don't know what skin color is. I don't know anything. That is called veil of ignorance. So if I imagine that there is a veil of ignorance, यही जो न्याय की देवी होती है उस पर लगा होता है, veil of ignorance, right? So people say कानून अंधा है. They don't understand. Huh? They watch too many Bollywood movies and then say कानून अंधा है, कानून. Fine, but they don't know that is veil of ignorance. So obviously, when we imagine a society where there is no discrimination, right, and the people who are making policies, the people who are making decisions, right, they have a veil of ignorance. They cannot see caste, creed, religion. They cannot discriminate on these grounds. He says, then we will have that fairness which is needed to implement justice. So see, now his theory becomes too hypothetical, right? Even though it is quite practical. Every government in the world is using the same model, right? They are trying to create or balance the benefits, subsidies, welfare schemes with economic growth, industrial development, and likewise. So those people who are saying that capitalist or corporate taxes were waived, and why so many farmers died, right? So let's say so many farmers died, but not all of them, right? Some of them died, not many of them. Why? Because corporates were also working. If the corporates had not paid taxes, right, almost all of them would have died. So try to understand. When people say this, why did government do that when not this? It is impossible. It is impossible to promote industrial development, attract investment, if corporates are not provided certain benefits. So you cannot simply use moral and ethical ground and say why, we can have economic progress and growth, fine, by following all the moral principles in the world. Impossible. Nobody will come and invest in your country, right? You see what happened to Adani after that report, Hindenburg report. And now once the Supreme Court gives the clean chit, now again they have revived. See? So there are a lot of foreign agencies, lot of institutions which are also behind countries like India, right? Or who are just running behind us just to find out any flaw in our system. So being the fifth largest economy is not a small thing. Being $1 trillion economy is not something small, right? Even though we are 10 times less than America, right, in terms of the size of GDP. But still, logically, right, we are growing very fast. And many of the countries in the world will not like it. So if we create an unfavorable climate for the corporates, there are a lot of people sitting in the world who will say, yes, India is not the destination of investment. Withdraw your investments. ठीक है, इसलिए corporates को waiver देना भी जरूरी है. Right? We need to create commercial enterprises. We need to create commercial opportunities for them so that they can come, invest, create capital asset, and give us taxes. Right? So let's say, so see, Rawls comes with his idea of Pareto optimality, or promotes the principle of Pareto optimality and says we can distribute this in a rational manner, equilibrium manner, only when we go to the original position, starting point, and we have a veil of ignorance. Right? So if those disparities are eliminated, then justice will take place. But this justice, or the concept of justice he talks about, right? Again, it was also criticized that this is coming more from Western mindset. What is the problem here? We are using a system, creating just and fair benefits for people, giving them opportunities, providing support to those who need it, right? But what is the problem here? John Rawls was criticized by Amartya Sen. Right? Amartya Sen, you know who is Amartya Sen, right? Amartya Sen and Jean Drey. Have you heard his name? He was in the Planning Commission. He was in the National Advisory Council. He is the architect of Narega, right, and many other development schemes in India. He is technically Indian now, right? He was also professor in the Delhi School of Economics. So he and Amartya Sen have been working together since long time. So Amartya Sen starts the criticism of Rawls' theory, because Rawls' theory was mostly based on economic resources, right? Economic benefits. When you're creating opportunities, right, how do you evaluate the backwardness of a community, backwardness of people? How do you evaluate? When you say people are backward, what is the basis? Generally, they are using, or Rawls is using, income parameters. Only on that ground, they discard the developing countries as backward. So we may be economically backward, but not culturally backward. We invented almost everything. Right? Zero. Zero is invented by us. Huh? Without zero, there is nothing in the world, right? Then decimal. Medicine, surgery, Shushruth. Huh? When, like our government has claimed, we knew about aeroplanes, right? Pushpak. Right? We knew about so many technologies in the world, right? Especially radar technology. Radar के बारे में नहीं पता आपको? Don't be unaware if you are preparing for UPSC. तो सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक के टाइम पे है, how we saved ourselves from the radar because of clouds. You've not heard that statement. Right? You will have to revisit your science studies. Right? You might need to have a relook at your whatever physics you have studied in your life. Because obviously when Prime Minister is saying I have to accept it. Okay, that is why I threw my degree out. Chemical engineering not required anymore. I just need the engineering from the Prime Minister. So see, obviously when we say we have invented a lot of things, we have contributed to so many, that obviously does not mean we have done this in these 14 years. And obviously we have to go back, right? 1,000 years back and whatever. But see, even then also, right, you imagine this way, that whatever the criteria today World Bank or IMF and many other international institutions are following for rating us, you understand? What are the ratings? The investment ratings. the economic ratings, right? The development ratings. So these ratings are mostly based on economic criteria, or they were at least based on economic criteria till 1990s. So if developing country is considered backward, why it is considered backward? Because it has lower economic growth. Fine. But because culturally and socially it might be much evolved, but there is no parameter used by them. See. So when he's saying people who are vulnerable? Not clear. Who are vulnerable? Fine. Culturally backward, economically backward, socially backward, communally backward, कौन से backward? So that was not very clear here. So most of the Western scholars, when they have identified the backwardness and poverty in our countries, or general backwardness in developing countries, they have always used economic criteria. This economic criteria is very narrow. Is it or not? We talk about per capita income. What is per capita income? Per capita income is average calculation. You may have less, he may have more, she may have less, she may have more, then calculate all that, there will be a number that will arrive at, right? But it does not indicate real income. So per capita income is calculated. It is not a correct measure. GDP growth rate. भाई ऑनलाइन वाले सो गए क्या? जीडीपी ग्रोथ रेट क्या है? Correct. See, this is the country, for example. All of you are working and contributing to economic growth. Let us calculate it. Let us convert your effort into money. Add it. Right? But there are a lot of people from outside who are working here. They are also earning, right? And then they are sending this income to their country. So obviously they will not give it to us, right? Okay, Yogendra, growth in the production of economic territory, correct. Fine, but see, when you calculate it, you quantify goods and services produced within your boundary by you as well as outsiders. Fine. Then you obviously subtract for the outsiders net foreign income from abroad. Why? Because you also have a lot of people who have run away from this country. In the search for good life, right? But they realized that after 2008, they should come back. After COVID, they realized that they should be in India. Right? थाली बजा के जिंदा रह गए लोग. Right? Vaccine की क्या जरूरत है? Imagine. That too in the foreign countries, you were packed in these plastic bags and thrown somewhere. Obviously, right? At least you die here, even the dogs will identify you. कि हमारी गली का है, इतना तो पता होगा. वहाँ कोई नहीं पहचानेगा, गवर्नमेंट भी नहीं पहचानेगी. Number of numbers claimed by them was also very low. Right? So see these. So we also have people who are working there. They are also sending money. So that is net foreign income from abroad. Minus it. Then you evaluate it or calculate it at factor cost. Factor cost, the cost or the basis on which you estimated, created your estimations. So there is a base price. Right? Factor cost पे करो. फिर depreciation minus करो. Fine. Then आएगा net national product. फिर population से divide करो. Net national income. Yeah, GNP per population. Right. So once you do that, then you get national or per capita income, technically national income, and you realize, fine, even if I distribute it, calculate it right, we may not get exact number. Even if GDP growth rate is there, it may not be distributed properly. So whatever criteria these people have used for classifying us as backward, vulnerable, identifying the groups who have been discriminated, whatever, they do not understand the realities of our society. See? Most of these European scholars, they believed that this redistribution of resources can be done by market, by private sector. Because see, their economic system was based on capitalist model. You understand capitalist model? What is capitalist model? Where capitalist dominate the economic system. The economic system functions through capitalist mode. What is capitalist mode? So there are wealthy, rich people who invest or who invest money in land, labor, capital, technology, or money is spent, right? Assets are created by them. So they own the means and resources of production. And then they hire people. So see, there are owners of production system and there are workers in the production system. That is a capitalist system. So government doesn't own. भाई इंडस्ट्रियलाइजेशन तो कहीं भी हो सकता है, चाइना में भी होता है, right? But China is not a capitalist system. Who owns the industry? That is very important. Who controls the capital? That is very important, right? Who manages the flow of resources? Government. Communism, where the government has minimum control over economic activities, over industrial organizations, right? Or capitalist, that is called capitalist model. Okay, it is also called as laissez-faire model. Right? Who was the biggest supporter? Who was the proponent, the idea? Many, but obviously it is Adam Smith. Adam Smith is the father of classical economics. Right? Classical economics. So Adam Smith brings the idea of laissez-faire state, where government will have minimum influence and control in economic activities. So see, their countries have market-based mechanism. Market-based mechanism with least interference of government. So if government does not interfere with economic system, who will provide this growth, resources, right? Market system. Market will flourish, government will collect taxes, and it will redistribute. It is easy for them to talk about it. Imagine countries like India. Right? In Indian context, we have government, right, who wants to collect taxes, but there are no industries from where they will collect taxes. So what they did, they nationalized all the industries. Right? Air India, चलो सरकार में आ जाओ, banks सरकार में आ जाओ, SBI ये भी सरकार में सब आ जाओ. They did not leave any private sector on whom they can impose taxes. But we had our own problems, right? So see, when government or when we started economic development, what to produce, how to produce, correct, Utkarsh, right? So everything is defined by the government, no doubt. So when we started with economic development, we realized that we do not have a robust, developed private sector. How we will create resource? So it is the government which has to create the resource. Fine. So let us take up agriculture. 90%, 80% of the population dependent upon agriculture, right? But agriculture can support only 40% of the people. But 88%, 89% are on the agriculture. So let's say we started a model. We said planning, we'll do planning. What is planning? Planning is done by every country in the world, no doubt. No country can say we don't plan, right? But it depends what system, which institution plans, right? So individual ministries and departments plan, yes, they plan. Individual organizations plan, they plan. Private sector plan, and it doesn't matter, right? But if we say that for this entire country, we will plan. Who will plan? The government will plan. So whether it is private sector, individual, community, anybody, we don't care. Right? Government, state government, local government, national government, whatever. We don't care. For everyone, we will plan. Now that makes a big difference. That there is a centralized planning model. So where you will invest, how much you will invest, where the technology will come, where it will be implemented, how much you can produce, how much you can sell, what price you will sell, licensing, permit, quota. Everything will be decided by us. So when we say India is a mixed economy, it was actually not a mixed economy. Right? It was mixed economy only in theory. In reality, government controlled almost all the 109 sectors of the economy. And only after 1990 globalization, we somewhere slowly, this restriction was reduced. Now almost 1.5 sectors. So government is also, today also government is everywhere. No doubt. Transport, government is there. Right? Energy, government is also there. Right? Education, government is also there. Health, government is also there. Transport, infrastructure, everywhere government is there. Right? But yes, it has reduced its role. Okay, that is called as rollback of state. So laissez-faire model जो है Adam Smith, it is that model. Government or state minimum role in economic activities. So countries like India or developing countries do not have that model as the Western countries. We were dominated by government in economic activities, which we call as socialistic model. Nehruvian socialism, right? So if John Rawls, or we apply this theory in India, right, it will be difficult for government to create the resources to manage this kind of balance because we do not have that much of resource itself. Huge population. And most of the functions to be performed by the government. तो गवर्नमेंट और भी काम करेगी सिर्फ यही करती रहेगी. Government will be involved virtually everywhere. So Amartya Sen says, see, that is very good, right? Rawls is talking about justice, redistribution, all these things. But he says, imagine, right? Survival is not development. Is survival development? No. Now Amartya Sen brings this idea that, see, there's a difference between growth, development, survival, and quality of life. ये अलग-अलग चीजें हैं. Rawls is not able to identify that if you redistribute the resource, what will happen? Is it survival? Is it growth? Is it development? Right? Is it quality of life? क्या है ये? What should government focus on? See, so Rawls is talking about minimum benefit. What else? When you are redistributing, what will you ensure? You will ensure the survival of these people. Right? To an extent, bringing them in the mainstream. What else? So he's saying that this strategy is inadequate to address the problems of developing societies. In developing societies, government's primary role is not to provide survival. Government's main role is not just to provide survival, but also to improve the quality of life of these people. So we have to provide income to the family, and we also have to protect that family from disparity. So in societies like India, there are cultural disparities, there are economic disparities, there are social disparities, there are multiple disparities. So state cannot just distribute resources and say we have done our work. No, he says this cannot be done. So he says Rawls misses the understanding of the actual nature of developing societies. So he brings his concept now, idea of justice. 1998, he wins the Nobel Prize, right, for welfare economics. So in his book, Idea of Justice, he started with the example of Bengal famine, right, one of the worst phases of human history, not just Indian history. So millions of people died. Right? One was Bengal famine in late 19th century. Right? One was, that was the same. And one was happening simultaneously when Delhi Darbar was held. What was Delhi Darbar? Correct. So see, when the World War was happening, or during that war, you can say, the Britishers were hoarding the food grains. They were sending these food grains to their families, to their houses, to their countries from here, right? And they were hoarding it so that it can be used during the war. And at the same time, lakhs of people were dying in several parts of this country, Bengal, Bihar, and likewise. And these people, right, because they had to hoard this food grain for the war, for their own country, in case there is a problem, something happens, right? And they were not giving minimum food grains to these people so that they can survive. So he uses this as example and he says, you see, drought is natural, famine is not. Right? सूखा natural है, भूखमरी natural नहीं है. So if you're creating artificial hunger, that is not natural. So famine is not natural, drought can be natural. So it says famine means people are dying of hunger. That means government did not have the ability to store and redistribute the food grains. So it says it is a failure of the government and the policy, not of the climate or the monsoon. So from here he starts his logic. So he says, the European scholar, even though he was a fan of John Rawls, right? But he starts with criticism of Rawls. So he says, you see, the Europeans, the Westerners, the economic thinkers, they do not understand that developing countries have a different structure altogether. We have numerous kind of problems at the same time, not just economic. In our country, justice will be all three: social, political, and economic, not just economic. Why? Because other forms of justice are available in their country. People are aware, people are conscious, people are literate, people have equality, people have rights, and so many things they have. But in our country, what happens? With lack of resource, you also have to face a lot of other consequences. जो गरीब है इंडिया में, right? वही चोर भी है. Is it or not? When you see a lot of movies, you will know what role police has, just to pick up someone and claim he is the one who did it, right? So जो गरीब है, right? वही चोर भी है, right? He is also involved in drug peddling. He is doing bootlegging. He is doing this. He is doing that. वही vote bank भी है, right? They are also the manual labor force. They are also the workforce. They are the lowest strata of the society, right? And they run majority of the institutions, but at a very small level. Right? So they form the base of this pyramid. But at the same time, they are one of the most oppressed people. So see, in Indian context, applying his theory would not be totally suitable. So he brings his idea, he says, okay, there is no need to say theory of justice. It would be useful to say idea of justice. What is a theory? अरे भी क्लास नहीं हो रही, बोल लो भैया, क्लास तो मंडे से होगी अभी. I'm just trying you to, first of all, to know how can or how far can you think, right? And then let you understand how far I can think. है ना? दोनों मैं बता रहा हूँ तुम्हें, तो मुझे दोनों पता चल जाएगा, right? Then I can set the pace of the class. Then, what is theory? Okay. Correct. Proof, but we prove something, right? And we get some conclusions, right? But theory, वैसे क्या in general, what is a theory? It's an explanation, a descriptive explanation of a real world phenomenon. That is what a theory is. So generally we say theory comes with a conclusion. Conclusion makes the understanding or meaning of the theory fixed. इसलिए वो theory है, right? क्यों? Whatever conclusions are drawn, more or less, they are derived from the theory. Okay, then that means the fixed conclusions are a consequence of theory. So the moment we use the word theory, we are referring to something concrete, something established, something proven, something well defined. Right? Now imagine this way. Let's say कि something is already defined, something is fixed in meaning, right? So when we use the word theory, we mean something is fixed in meaning. Amartya Sen is saying, I will replace or I will counter this theory with the term idea. What is idea? Idea is evolving. There is no fixity, there is no fixed meaning of this term. So idea dynamic word hai. Theory static word. That is why he starts with the title of the book, Idea of Justice. So you see, justice is a dynamic concept. It's not something that we define a principle once and it cannot change. So he says, in context of India, justice means that we have to focus on various aspects, not just economic. In fact, Amartya Sen says economic justice that Rawls talks about, right? It is the most essential, or you can say it is the legal, moral, ethical obligation of the government towards people. It is not something extraordinary the government is doing. So he says these principles don't apply to that part. Economic benefit, minimum survival is the duty of any government in the world. You understand this logic or not? He is saying that the government has obligation to provide economic benefit or economic survival. It is not something extraordinary they are doing. So he is countering the Rawls and saying that economic inclusion, economic benefit, survival is not justice. It is a compulsory purpose or role of the government because it is the government. What will it do? So he says that yes, this is a minimum survival. This is what a government should do, and that is why it is a government. It's not a corporate, right? It's not a private sector. He says it is a government, and that is the obligation. You must secure minimum survival to all your people. That is your duty. So he brings the idea or concept of entitlement. आप सबने बहुत सारे GS के programs, policies you might have studied in GS. Right? So Amartya Sen, UPSC is now many times is in habit of asking directly his contribution, right? In education, so many places. So Amartya Sen talks about something known as entitlements. And he says entitlements are rights people have over their government. Obligation of the government to provide certain basic amenities to the people. So, when Rawls says that economic resources should be redistributed so that people's or citizens' survival can be assured, he says it is not something extraordinary. That is not justice. That is the minimum obligation every government must perform. See? So entitlement क्या है? Basic, essential. Basic essential needs, right? Both. Initially, it can be quantitative. Then it should evolve to qualitative. Right? For example, when I say fine, obviously that is not too minimum, but when we say it's like a minimum wages survival package, the people are provided basic employment, mostly unskilled labor work, so that they can survive. So this is just quantitative, right? Basic subsidy, PDS, survival, quantitative, right? But let us say in future, right to health. which to an extent we have, right? Considering primary health centers and all that, right? So let's say we have right to education, right to information, Food Security Act, and so many other aspects. Women के लिए अब तो right हो गया भैया, right? So right who are wrong that we don't know, but right is there, right? So, right, it is no doubt an extraordinary legislation, but should have come long back, and still they are delaying it, politicizing it. So see this right. It is called rights-based approach. So when you use the word rights-based approach, है ना? प्रीलिम्स के सिलेबस में लिखा है गवर्नेंस, ओके, राइट्स इश्यूज, पब्लिक पॉलिसी लिखा हुआ है, प्रीलिम्स का सिलेबस पढ़ा है कि नहीं? So just go and see the prelim syllabus, you'll find this, right? Rights-based issues, public policy, governance, right? So see, right to education, right to information, right to health, and likewise. So these several type of services or goods and services which government is providing, mandatory under certain rights, right? This means rights-based approach. So basic services and utilities people can demand as right from the government. So he says, इसमें justice की कोई बात ही नहीं है. People have to demand them as a right, and government has to provide it, right? So he says this is minimum a government can do. If the government moves beyond this now, once the basic survival is secured, right? Once your existence is secured, once you are given basic amenities, right? What is basic health? It's just a basic amenities, right? In today's world, where government is earning trillions and trillions of money, right? So he's saying that these basic requirements once fulfilled, then what is the next step, right? We have to develop them qualitatively. So Amartya Sen brings another perspective, capabilities model. Capabilities approach. What is capabilities approach? To develop your capability, empower you, give you qualitative resources, qualitative, what you can say, information, knowledge, whatever skills, so that now you can transform your life. So provide basic amenities as rights, then develop the highest skill possible, maximum qualitative development possible, and then make them empowered enough to work for themselves. So breaking the poverty trap, breaking the poverty cycle will obviously happen only when this will happen. Right? इतना समझ में आया तो capabilities क्या है? When you are talking about human development, education, no doubt. But the moment you talk about human development now, or you are talking about something called startup, stand up India, entrepreneurship development program, right? Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana, right? Then कौशल विकास, करेक्ट. दीनदयाल उपाध्याय, और क्या है? दीनदयाल उपाध्याय, सब तो दीनदयाल उपाध्याय है ना. श्यामा प्रसाद मुखर्जी, right? What is it? There is a program very popular. Have you heard of दीनदयाल उपाध्याय डे अंत्योदय योजना? दीनदयाल उपाध्याय अंत्योदय योजना divided as National Livelihood Mission. ग्रामीण कौशल विकास योजना, पीएमजी दिशा, वो क्या है? प्रधानमंत्री जी, पीएमजी ग्रामीण, राइट? डिजिटल साक्षरता अभियान. तो अब बहुत सारे जो schemes are, what are they indicating at? They are indicating at that, right? So they are focusing on what? They are focusing now on human development, right? Intellectual development, right? They know, right? Modi ji knows कि okay, for some time they can earn from TikTok and YouTube, but eventually they will have to do something concrete in their lives, right? They also have to participate in the nation building, right? Otherwise, in videos only they will make everything: bridges, roads, buildings, aeroplanes, everything they'll make on these videos only, right? So they have to do something concrete contribution to the society. सब डिजिटल इंडिया ही है. Okay, that is called National E-Governance Program 2.0. 2015, 14, 15 जिसको आपने डिजिटल क्या बोला भैया अभी, डिजिटल इंडिया. सो 2006 में पहला था NEGP 1, राइट. 2014-15 में सेकेंड लॉन्च हुआ. उसी का वेरिएंट अब दे आर नाउ लॉन्चिंग CSC 2.0, right? Have you heard of this CSC 2.0? Common Service Centers, right? So from e-governance to m-governance, so governance in pocket now, right? So likewise, you have made a big transition, no doubt, but this is qualitative. So the moment I talk about Human Development Index, right? GEM, क्या है ये? Gender Empowerment Measure, right? GII, Gender Inequality Index. MPI, Multi-Dimensional Poverty Index, and likewise. So now when we start focusing on these or developing these qualities, right, overcoming these so many barriers which we have, so now that is called capabilities model. So Amartya Sen is saying providing basic amenities and then securing survival, and now when moving towards capabilities, probably that will be justice, where you empower people, not just to provide basic economic resources. So he counters Rawls, right? Plus also he says, yes, you can talk about veil of ignorance, but in reality, how will this be applicable? Every human system, right, works with that biasness. So he says better create a general criteria and implement it. Correct, logical, fine. Otherwise, they are talking about welfare economics. He develops a equation for that, and he says how distribution can be provided in the most rational manner. Rational means it's correct, logical to hai, but rational ka, in terms of distribution, what does it mean? Efficient, right? Quantifiable, something which is quantitatively efficient, right? That is rational. So when we try or intend to ensure that the distribution does not suffer from losses, corruption, inefficiency, that is rationality. So purpose to rational hai, no doubt. But obviously, we cannot distribute anything without using certain principle or philosophy. Efficiency is not the only criteria. Once we set the criteria, then we want to be efficient. Right? So all the poor would be included in this scheme, correct? Once we set the criteria, then we say the distribution of the resource under this scheme would be rational. So once the criteria is set, all the poor will be served. How these poor will be served? In the most efficient manner. So even when we are serving public interest, quantitative or qualitative, we also intend to be rational. We cannot waste resources, right? We cannot overuse resources. So we have to balance that. That is called rationality or Pareto optimality. वो भी एक rational तरीका भी. See. So every government intends to serve public interest. But thing is, what is the criteria? What are the principles involved? How do we balance the needs of one section with the other. Now see, this is a complicated challenge in front of public administration. Because we said, see, the government makes or decides what is to be done, and public administration achieves that purpose. Okay? So both of these systems are working simultaneously for public interest. They may have their own roles, right? But these systems don't work in isolation from each other. So your government and administration, right? They are two different systems working for the same purpose. So in reality, they seem to be different, right? But they don't work in isolation from each other. When a ministry makes the policy, the ministry is advised by the higher level civil servants. Higher level civil servants have a direct role in policy formulation and not just implementation. So people, I would not say at the highest level, but at the middle higher level, they are involved in implementation directly. Above them, people are involved, or bureaucrats or civil servants are involved in policy formulation. So see, serving public interest through policy, through law, right? Whatever means available, right? It can only be done when there is what you can say, an informed cooperation between government and administration. So see, study of administration is involved in understanding these complications. How politics, how administration interact, right? How policies are formulated. Why should policies be formulated? How policies can be implemented effectively? Why? What is formulated will be implemented. So if I have to implement, I also need to know whether what is formulated, can it be implemented or not. तो ये भी तो एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन का काम है. We say administration implements policy, fine, right? But how does it know that which of these policies can be implemented easily, which will face problems, and which may never be implemented, right? So a minister goes and promises people that in this desert, I will create a hydropower project for you, and he comes back. Now secretary is wondering what to do. How can we do that? Fine. So it is also possible that, see, administrators and government, or ministers and civil servants, they must collaborate effectively to make the policies which are feasible, to implement them in a particular time frame. तभी ये possible होगा. तो public administration की जो study है, it centers around public interest, right? Welfare, justice, equality, equity, even efficiency, right? But how are we going to achieve this? What problems we'll face while doing it? How we can improve it, right? What system we can design so that we can implement it most effectively? That is the concern of our study, right? So we have two papers. One paper is, I would say, theoretical. It analyzes, describes what exactly are the features and aspects of the study of PubAd. In fact, you can say it is the paper which establishes the identity of public administration as a subject. Right? Otherwise, if you don't read it, you will never understand that what exactly is the nature, scope, characteristic, right, or even personality of public administration. What are the unique features of the study of PubAd? How it is distinct from political science or sociology or from something. Paper 2, on the other hand, so it has 12 units, right? All of them are obviously not important. Many of them are subsumed in the other chapters. Nature of questions which are asked in the UPSC, right? Your notes will be much more than what UPSC can ask. But the only provided the need is that you have to regularly write the answers. If you don't write it, it will be a big problem, because it is like understanding calculus. Right? It is like understanding electromagnetism. It is like understanding CSAT, not doing it. Understanding CSAT. Right? Doing is the later part. So see, if you don't understand, if you miss that understanding, right, Anywhere, any books, any note, any video you'll see, right? They'll say public administration, ये 14 units है, 12 units है, इसमें ये पढ़ना है, ये पढ़ना है, ये पढ़ना है, right? All of them miss the logical mark. What is the logical? Tell them, you take this question paper, tell me what is this question about. See? Simplification is not ignorance. Once simplification is done of the concept, everything becomes simple. Right? Once you know how a pulley works, you can solve any question of pulley. Right? But if you start making a template of the pulleys, right? You start making a template of numbers, right? कि नीचे Q दिया हो तो ये आंसर होगा, R दिया हो तो ये होना चाहिए, S होगा तो अच्छा ऐसे हो जाएगा. What is it? It is making templates without understanding. So paper 1 is like that. The moment you understand it sequentially, right? So directly notes, right? ऐसे भी students हमारे पास जो सिर्फ 1.5-2 महीने पढ़ के गए, right? And they've scored 270 marks, even though they have not qualified, right? Finally. But they've scored 270, 75 marks just by reading the notes and not even writing a single answer. Deepak is one student. If given a chance, he's now PCS in UP, right? So someday we'll call him. उसने एक भी आंसर नहीं, but that should not be your, benchmark, right? He was from NIT Patna, right? He was a good student, but still. So if you are using the notes, you don't need anything. That is very clear. Second, when you're reading the handout has some descriptive content. Apart from what you're reading in the notes, which will make you understand everything, the handout will give you some descriptive content, which on that understanding you can add. Right? It will have some practice questions. It will have some questions and answers. Right? Everything is there. Diagrams, handmade by us. Right? And likewise. Right? So constantly we will keep doing it. If you understand paper 1 effectively, that you will do, don't worry. You can get more than 160, 170 in paper 1. Right? Paper 2 obviously has 30% part dynamic part. What is dynamic part? Question comes or a news comes regarding finance commission, right? Amendments to election commission, IPC, CRPC. So what they will do? They will pick up one aspect, right? The IPC, CRPC developed by Britishers or colonial administration has outlived the utility in the modern India. See? So people will say, "Arey, ye current affairs ka question hai." Ye current affairs ka question hai. Why will they ask current affairs in PubAd, first of all? Then what is the utility of asking that in general studies? So they don't ask current affairs, try to understand. They use current affairs to identify that issue in our syllabus, right? To which it can be matched. And then they ask it. So obviously you need knowledge of current affairs, right? But is that only current affairs question? It is not a current affairs question. If they're asking question on digital governance or smart policing, digital policing, that is not current affairs. That is basically policing. Right? The only thing is that they are referring to what is the modern current status of policing. You see, use of technology doesn't make it current. Right? Current तो तब होता जब वो सिलेबस में होता ही नहीं और फिर यूपीएससी ने पूछा होता है. Then you could have said, no, there is an area, current affairs for PubAd, which should be studied. Right? So your class will include everything, don't worry. Current perspectives, political, governance, all that is needed, right? But in paper 2, what you have to do, right? In paper 2, you have to remember facts. So we'll talk about a lot of facts, right? Not necessarily I will dictate all of them, right? So it is your sincere duty to make a column and keep noting it. Okay? So while we are discussing the main part of the topic or some narrative, we might talk about several examples in between. Right? That is how we teach. Right? So we don't believe in this linear interaction. So once you encounter that information, you kindly make a habit of noting it down. Because once you revise again later, right, you can very easily recollect the lecture by looking at those information. Also, we'll talk about so many other things. So in paper 2, there are 14 units. These 14 units have 6-7 units overlapping on each other, right? But paper 2, how we start, we teach with the base of second ARC. So don't say कि second ARC कब होगा, right? वो जो पूरा content हमारा develop होगा, topic, issues, concepts, that basis is second ARC. Right? Arora and Goel, Sharma and Sadana, right? Fadia and Fadia, 2-3 books are there. Never read them. If you want to have good score, fine. So whatever handout we'll give, second ARC booklet, right? Plus whatever we'll do, you read that, fine. Yes. In paper 2, what thing, like I said, you need data. Keep collecting some data. I will tell you how to categorize it. Women-centric data. Rural development-centric data. And so I'll tell you, don't worry, right? We'll give you small notes whenever needed. Fine. So you don't have to worry. You just study and keep revising it as much as you can. Right? We also use MCQs. They are not asked in the mains paper, right? But MCQs are designed for you to revise. So over the time, we'll have 6 tests in the class, daily answer writing, what you'll write, and 6 tests. Apart from 6 tests, there will be half tests, right? Tests like 1.5, 2.5, 3.5. They are MCQ tests. Why? They are created so that you can remember things. So it's not a test, it's only a revision model. So the moment you try attempting them, you start recollecting your information. Fine? क्योंकि लिखना है तो नाम याद होना चाहिए. Right? You cannot simply write a definition without not knowing the author. Right? Even if you don't know, it's okay. But at least right now, when you put the effort, you should try to remember some 10, 15, 20 scholars who are very prominent in public administration. Their definitions are most of the questions in the exam. Right? Prime Minister's speech, more or less on Civil Services Day, it becomes one question. So don't worry about anything. You have to just work hard. Right? So there is no shortcut, right? Kindly follow a pattern. A pattern should be smart enough so that you excel compared to others. So 1 month when you study, you will realize that you are far ahead of anybody, even who is teaching Pabad. Right? But like I said, don't open coaching here. Right? Already I have broken from many people, right? Just for the same purpose. Okay, see you then, don't worry. Monday we'll start. Kindly have a proper notebook, right? Or whatever handouts are given, fine, you can keep attaching to that to your notes. See you then, Monday. So kindly bring that syllabus, that structure.